Okay, we made a run. In the 100 acres of this forest, there was one tree that had the staff, which I'd kept, what looks to be an eagle feather of some kind on. It's been eaten away a little bit. But also this trusty piece of wood here, which I've had for about 2 years, which will fit perfectly on this chair, thankfully. Dry up a bit. I love walking through the wet forest in the morning. And I love doing something in life that it seems nobody else can do and doesn't even see the need for. Which is, I don't know why I'm laughing. It's not a good thing, but I just think it's hilarious that more people don't live the way I do. It's like there was a homeless guy in the United States, and he said he lived on the same amount of money I did, and had no socks and depended on begging from other people. And I'm like, and the States is even cheaper to live in than here. This is one of the most expensive places in North America to live. And I just think it's all bullshit. You know? The whole homeless thing is bullshit. You know? Like, fuck. I've lived on welfare most of my adult life, and I've never missed a meal. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus. All you need is like an IQ over a double nickel. And, you know, you have to be willing to go without sometimes. Delayed gratification, and you use your intelligence. Like, if you're like an animal and you're in a society, whatever, and you can't use your intelligence to survive, then you should die. And that's just the way it goes. And you know that. And yet people will get on the street and complain like, I can't live. You've got to give me money. It's like, really? No, it's not an easy situation for a lot of people. But society is not going to give you a solution. Right? Society is based on making people poor, but also making people think they're poor, and making sure that the communication of our families, 90% of which should be about the care and well-being of the emotional being of every person, from conception to death, right? To make that all silent. And then you think, oh, I'm going to go off to war and protect my family. What the fuck are you doing at that point, right? Your basic verbal linguistic capacity to care about other people is now fucking basically brain dead. By the school system and by your own self-talk, you've convinced yourself you're stupid. Nobody cares about you. You don't have to care about anybody else. It's ridiculous. I just gotta get dressed first. Because you don't walk a mile in this weather with your clothes on. That can be nice and dry. Ooh. We have mosquitoes. You know, I haven't had one mosquito bite this year. Not one. They've pricked a couple times, but they never really go for it. I think it's more of a love bite. I'm gonna see if I can take a piss. So, let's see if we... Big day today. say to people, my sister and I were opposite, but the thing is, the people in my family are psychopaths. And you can say it to yourself a million times, and it starts maybe not to mean so much, and you think this or that. But the fact of the matter is, once you know someone's a psychopath, there's nothing you can really do. They certainly aren't going to change. You're not going to change, right? They've got themselves basically the most undiagnosed mental illness, major mental illness in the world. Psychiatrists aren't looking to diagnose people with psychopathy because they'd be diagnosing everybody. No one ever medicates anyone for being a psychopath or a narcissist. And they don't self-diagnose, meaning they don't come with a complaint like doctors just don't diagnose people with narcissism, usually. Probably because you can't medicate it. So, got this nice chair now. Thanks to my little piece of wood. If I didn't have that, wouldn't be here. Let's get some of these mosquitoes away. Oh. I had lots of things to talk about when I started out today, but I think I burned it off mostly coming here. Which is good. Another good reason to go to nature, but the top intelligence of this world is verbal, right? Essentially, it's about magic, right? The top intelligence is all about magic, spells, runes, getting people to think things, that type of thing. Your basic nightmare. Especially when people in the school system are basically raised to be like 80 IQ, workable IQ, so, which you can use to do any job in the world, 60 to 80 IQ. And I don't mean like that's how smart you are, that's how dumb you are. I mean like that's all it takes to do your job. Some water. Woo. So I'm pleased I found in 100 acres the one tree where I had my stuff. I had one stick and this other branch I wanted to recover, and it's nice piece of wood. It's damp. It's been raining a lot. It's supposed to be sun today, but I'm not sure what that's going to do. They always say things, but I trust my own instincts, and I think it's just going to be a little inclement for a while. But let's get some marijuana smoke going here. Great, we're good. Oh. Nice morning walk. I managed to not see anybody the entire walk. Oh. Yeah, my dad had a stutter when he was young. He was pigeon-toed. I'm permanently pigeon-toed in my left foot. The lack of development there. And my mom's like, it's amazing that, nobody ever figured out why that is. And I said, Mom, I know why it is. And I started to explain to her, and she never listens. As soon as I say that, her ears just close. Right? She doesn't know because she doesn't want to know. She's just like, she's not there. You can see, like, she was never a mother. She was never really there. You know? And I just said, stuff going on when I was in the womb, stuff going on when I was born, the fact that my father didn't give a fuck about me, things like that. He's like, oh, okay. You these are like, emotional tsunamis for the developing human being, right? And how could you not know? How could you not know? And I just like, people's emotional intelligence is like brain dead. How could you not be angry and frustrated at how emotionally stupid people are? My mom is an emotional moron, you know? And, but if she needs to be angry at someone, oh, you better watch out. She's right in there. She knows exactly where to cut you and how deep. She's a fucking Marine. So as I said to my dad many times, he's like, oh, I don't understand it. You only understand what you're interested in, motherfucker. If you're not interested in people, if you're not really interested in their well-being, how are you ever going to fucking understand the world? Most people don't understand the world because they don't fucking care. They never fucking care. They're like used car salesmen. They go home, they scratch their balls, they fuck their wives, they go to bed, they get up, they do it, then the same thing the next day. Like, most people's lives are not that exciting. They're not even as exciting as my life. I got up today and I was aware that a lot of people don't like me because they've trespassed upon me. And what I found is that if you just work with nature, you can really fuck with them. Stuff gets taken care of. It's not really about fucking with people, it's just about taking care of yourself. And when you teach a little humility, and that's what people need usually, a little fucking humility. And maybe we all need that sometimes. You make a mistake, have some fucking humility, then you go on, right? But a lot of these rednecks, they can't handle it. They can't handle being humbled. It enrages them, makes them sick. A couple of three females were using subterfuge to try to menace me and threaten me, in their workplace, and I called their bluff, and they had to quit. Right? They were using slander, lying. Right? You got to watch out. If something you're doing, right, involves having to lie about somebody or bearing false witness against them, and they found out the biblical result of that is they lost their income. They lost their fucking job, and they had to quit. They don't even get unemployment, right? Remember the look on one of their faces? So twisted. And they're really just uneducated people. Sad, sick, working women. And they made the mistake of underestimating who they were dealing with. It's all about energy. Wow, this is really good. Oh, sun's coming out a bit. My brother, my older brother, has a wife who's a psychopathic Negroid, and she really is. I think that there's good black people and bad black people, and those are the Negroids, right? Those are the real niggers. They're really psychopathic black people, right? And they've got their problems. They always do, but they're psychopaths. And she threatened my mom. My brother threatened her as well, multiple times. Attempted to extort money from my parents. And my mother capitulated a little bit emotionally, not financially. And so this black woman, that's how she establishes relationships with her husband's family. She threatens people until they capitulate. She can't really have a relationship because a psychopath unless she's dominated someone first. So they know, everyone knows where they stand. I knew the moment I heard her name that she was a psychopath. I knew the moment I heard her name. Because people know. I can tell anyone, if you tell me about someone you know, I can tell they're a psychopath. Because you know they're a psychopath. I'm getting from your energy. Human beings are very good instruments. They just don't use their own instruments. Right? The people that run the world, they're looking at your instrument. They're pooling all the information that all your instruments are putting out. And they know you. They know what you're saying. They know what you know. And they manage that. They manage what you know that you don't know that you know. That's magic. But yeah, people know a lot more than they think. You watch a crime show and someone says, "Hey, tell me about what happened." It's like, "I don't know." It's like, you know more than you think. Just relax, okay? Right? And that's magic. You know more than you think. Now think about if you use that part of your mind all the time. More intelligent people like myself, we're trying to use that. I mean, you could never. I mean, it's a fucking continent of intelligence. I'm not saying I'm using my entire subconscious mind, but you dip into using a bit more of it. You supplement your mind with that subconscious material, and you've got a life. Again, I'm not saying I'm using my entire subconscious, but I'm dipping into it. Most people never do. As a witch, one of the first things I learned to do was to integrate or invoke the subconscious strata of my mind to make the unconscious conscious. But you can't teach that sort of thing. You know? But once you do that, you see, you can't be hypnotized. Actually, you can self hypnotize. In other words, like I meet narcissists and I just agree to go along with it in my own mind, like like this person is just heinous, right? But once they're heinous with you, then they start to be friendlier because now they feel like they've got dominance instead of heinous. That's the same thing. If you meet someone and they make a joke, they tell an obvious lie, they bring up a flaw in your apparel, they maybe make something that puts you on your heels. Now, it could be accidental, right? Because we say awkward things, but there's a chance that they're a narcissist or a psychopath. If they say something that makes you feel awkward, and then they correct. In other words, they notice your body language and go, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way," or "I'm sorry," or something. That's another thing. But understand there are also other people where you can talk to them, and they will get awkward, right? And they'll use that to their advantage. So we say like the nice guy finished last because he's trying to appease women all the time. But I don't anymore. I barely even make eye contact with most women. I just ignore them. I had a woman following me with her dog on the beach the other day. The right age, right? Ugly and getting uglier. Ugh. God, women are ugly. I don't think nature made women like this. It's so hard to masturbate when you don't have any good-looking women around. My mom hides this fact, but she doesn't really like children. She's one of the millions of people who've convinced themselves they like children. Like, I don't like children, right? I don't. But I'm interested in their well being. I mean, why should I like children? I don't know any of them. I can't like someone I don't know. You might say I like some children. That stick really, that board really helps. I was just doing some sun gazing. That was nice. Ah, lovely. Oh, let's have some coffee. Ooh. Yeah, so, yeah, I don't see why people always say they love children. Oh, I love children. I love my children. It's like, don't tell me, tell them. Better yet, show them. You know, my parents didn't have to be full-time parents, right? They were my parents were never parents except on rare occasions, vacations, maybe dinner. My mom never talked to me. She never just like sat down with me and said, "Hey, Landon, how's it going?" Ever. My mom was never a mom. My dad was never a dad. They hate children. They hate children. They hate children. My parents hate children. They hate them. They don't, in a sense, they can't have anything to do with them. My dad never talked to me. You know, my mom never talked to me. Except maybe to say hello when I got home from school. My mom doesn't even think that's abnormal. My mom doesn't have a good connection with her body. I think it's grown over the years. But if my mom had never been a mom, she probably would have been better off. And she would have lived the same way she did as a mom, which is for herself. Which is fine if you've got to the point where, you know, you're relatively healthy. You know, you can live for yourself and your children. But if you're not, you're just living for yourself, right? And then children fill in the gaps. So basically, as a child, you're born into a family. It could be just a regular middle class family, and you're getting used. You're getting psychologically raped every day. Nobody cares about you. And uncles never talk to me, aunts never talk to me, cousins never talk to me. I never had one conversation about life, my home, or anything with anyone, ever. To this day. To this fucking day. Like, what the fuck are you people all doing? What do you do? You know? Do people talk to you? Do people find out how you're feeling? I'd love to see what that's like. I've never had it. I've never had someone ask me how I'm doing and really fucking care. You really want to know how I'm doing? Because it's been a while since somebody asked me that, so I might be out of practice in answering the question. Let's see, how am I doing? Well, I was born to a family with people who don't care about children. How do you think I'm doing? It's work, right? Because you can't really be your own mother and father, right? Do you understand? That's a very difficult task to ask a baby to do, right? I mean, I'll give it a heroic attempt, right? But seeing as I just got here, it is a bit much to ask, right? Because most people can't do that. You can't be your own mother and father. But that's what I had to do. My mother and father didn't communicate anything to me, right? My mother waited until I was 45 years old to tell me why she couldn't breastfeed me properly when I was born. She had never told me otherwise. That's not a communication person. She just recently told her car dealership to take the money out of a different account, and she didn't have any money in it. Right? I mean, who does that? It's like, oh, I don't have any money in it. Oops. All she has to do is sequence things properly. To think about herself, think about what she's trying to accomplish, and other people. But she doesn't know how to communicate. And when you see children of troubled homes, they always have trouble communicating. Right? People with sexual abuse, not in all ways, but logic, reason, communicating, you'll see like extraordinarily lapses in communication. And then also among predator types, lapses in communication. They seem very insular sometimes in the way they prioritize who needs to know what. You ever been in a family and it's like you're the last person to know something, right? You ever felt like you're the last person to know something? Like, how come I didn't know that? You ever been in a group where everyone seems to know something but you don't? Like what to do or how to act and you don't know? Where did that come from? Are we all supposed to just guide our entire lives based on what other chimpanzees, how they respond to stress? You're in a classroom and these chimpanzees respond to stress this way, and you're supposed to respond the same way. But chances are the way you responded was different in its way, and it is a response to stress. And it worked, or it works, for a time, right? Stress responses of this kind work for a time, right? They work for a time, right? And then it burns out or you burn out. Then now you got to think of a new, right? And it leaves you feeling empty because your stress response fills up your life. So for me, it was doing scholastics. It fills up my life. It was like an antidepressant, right? Before I even needed it. And then school was gone and it was just like, I had nothing. I needed a new strategy. And then the strategy was now for me because there was no one else involved now. The one thing my family and the world gave me was solitude. I had nobody. So I had to use that to my advantage. So what's a good strategy for dealing with stress if you have a lot of solitude? Well, if you have a high IQ and a high verbal IQ, writing, poetry, art. That's what I did. And that's what brought me here today. My life's very simple in that sense. I'm so pleased I got this piece of wood. Yesterday when the chair broke, I thought, I know what I can use on that. I've been saving this piece of wood for 2 years. I found it down by the river. The river washed it up 2 years ago, and I thought, I'm going to need that one day. Stuck it behind one tree in 100 acres and came back today, 2 years later. There it is. Sit down. I got a chair, right? And this wood's not going to break, so now I'm good. Now we're permanent. Because the chair was going to break. It was bound to break. Do you really want to hurt me? Do you really want to make me cry? Do you really want to hurt me? Do you really want to make me cry? Dee, 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 dee. So it may seem very destructive or not very constructive to complain about your parents, but if you have parents that aren't parents, don't have high communication skills, have a lot of stress, have a lot of anger, they're in their own situation in life, they're doing the best they can, they're working, they come home, they watch TV. My mom would drink and read paperback novels. My dad would watch TV. Um, and then they would drink together and become violent. And that was life in my home. And you didn't look forward to the evenings. But it always seemed to come as a shock. Life would be going on, and next thing you know, voices would be raising, and then boop, 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 you'd be hiding in your room with your brothers and sister, waiting for it to stop. And one day, my sister opened the door and ran out and said, "Stop it! Stop it!" Right? One day. She probably saved herself a little bit, probably helped her mind, but she was already close to being psychopathic. Like, because as heroic as that seems, right? She finalized a fundamental breakdown in the natural order, right? You've got maybe a 13-year-old girl telling these two people of combined age of 100 years who've had psychological and physical dominance over her since she was an infant and before she was born, basically making her feel like she's going to die. And that's not in Kuwait, and that's not in Afghanistan, and that's not here. That's in a fucking 2110 Primrose Street, Abbotsford, BC, B2S 2Z2 859 9113 is my phone number. Blah, 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 blah is my social insurance number. It's over. It's fucking over. It's over for my sister. It's over for all of us. It's all over. And you see, of the four of us, I knew that. I would say to my brother, man, this is done. This is over. We're cooked. And he would get so fucking mad at me because he was in denial. He thought, no, 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 this can be saved. No, 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 no. You see, he's a psychopath. He was denying already the natural order of things. You see? What people don't tell you is the stuff that happens in people's homes before they join the army, before they become to be a big man who drives tanks around and has medals. It's not about the medals, though. It's about the courage of serving your nation. And there's lots of work to be done, to be sure. But it all ends in that home. And I tell you, I guarantee you, every single soldier in the U.S. Army has been sexually abused in their life. Every single soldier. So it's a fundamental weakness, fundamental denial in the mass of human beings, in what's actually happened to them and what happens in their homes, right? I had a friend who came from a perfect home, nice sort of, I don't know India that well, but I guess they're the pleasant Indians. They were really pleasant, very, you might say liberal or modern Indians, and pleasant home, mother, father, the whole deal. He was my best friend in grade 2 and 3 and 4. And then he started becoming psychopathic, started getting hyper into fashion. Next thing you know, he just hangs out with the cool kids, blah, 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 blah. I didn't have a friend, really. But a fun-loving guy, right? He was jealous of me. He would start saying things which undermined me. I'd score a basket when we were playing basketball. I was on the basketball team when I was like in grade 7 or something. He'd be like, "Oh, you look really stupid, man." Really? That's your friend talking? I had athletic ability, that's all. It comes from intelligence. You know what I mean? This idea of geeks who like have no athletic ability, like that's ridiculous. I did what I needed to do. You know, if I was on the soccer field, whatever, advance the ball, whatever the fuck, right? I had some athletic ability, but sports was not my calling by any means. And I saw a young man my age, Darren Rowell, and he became almost a professional baseball player by the time he was 16 years old. There were guys like that. And I see them around today. I see people's children, like they do put them in baseball and they're just like, they're fucking almost like at the professional level by the time they're 13 years old. They just push them so hard. And that's not a life, see, for a human being. Human beings aren't supposed to do that. That's abusive. Sports are basically for children who have nothing else to do. I was playing soccer, you see, because I was at school. I wasn't at home. And we had nothing else to do. Because, it's just fucking grass. There's no trees. They cut everything down. They put fucking gates up. I used to walk around as a child and just look at the few leaves that floated into the fucking schoolyard. To this day, it's one of my favorite things to do. Or look into puddles and things like that. I wanted nature, you see. And all these teachers that love children, after all these hundreds of years, they haven't fucking figured that out because they're stupid and they've been sexually abused and they're psychopaths and they're pedophiles. They love children. They don't even fucking get the first thing about education. They don't know the first thing about the human fucking mind. And I could tell you stories about what they fucking tell me that they don't know. And I'm not gonna go through it all. They tell me everything. I talk to a teacher. They tell me everything. You don't have to be that smart to hear these people confess to having no fucking ability to teach anybody anything. They're communist bureaucrats. They just do the same thing over and over again. Congratulate themselves if they made it interesting one day. They probably come home to their fucking homosexual wives and husbands and be like,
Well, how was your day? It was better. I introduced a new colored pencil on the chalkboard. You know, they really liked it. Gandalf's theory of neurological development has succeeded. You know, I mean, it's just they're rats in a cage. They're hilarious. It's fucking comedic to see what teachers think about children and child development. It's fucking comedic. As a man who's studied it since I was a fucking teenager, right? And you read around the subject. You don't just read the popular fucking books. You don't read the communist propaganda. You read around, right? You want to study child development? Look at fucking everything. Look at fucking everything. My education is in fucking everything. What the fuck isn't about child development in this world? What the fuck isn't about it? Why the fuck would you have to look into some dusty tome-ridden library to find something about children? It's all about children. It's all about children, and it's not. It's not about children, and it is. 90% of human communication, which should be dedicated to human well-being, doesn't even exist anymore. And you just see that in every fucking home, and then you multiply that by 10 billion people. No one ever talks about anything. These aren't homes. These are brigades for advancing the cause of communist labor forces. That's all these homes are. They're loveless. They're all loveless in this area. They're all loveless homes. They're full of loveless, what no one wants to say. They're all in fucking denial. Maybe you are too. All these homes in the world are loveless. They're just fucking loveless, bloodless homes. And no one can do a fucking thing about it. And what happens if one person puts up a peep and says, hey, this isn't really what the majesty of human existence is all about. I don't like it, and I don't stand for it. What the fuck do you do with them? Medicate them? Send them off to boot camp? You fucking mangy pedophiles. I know what you fucking do to your children. I know what you do to them. I watch between the ages of 9 and 13. You look at these girls become little dykes in about 4 years. They lose all their fucking femininity, all that glorious fucking energy, right? Which is already disturbed. You can see that when you see them tittering with their cell phones and stuff, right? There's already nervous laughter going on. Their homes are not what they should be, but youth allows for a lot of natural denial. The human brain is amazing at dealing. You might think this isn't fair, but your brain's a genius at many things. And if you give it a lot of pain as a child, that genius will go into hiding that pain from you. Okay? That's the fundamental principle of child development. Right? Children will actually get happier the more they're abused. Some people say, oh, look, my children are happy. That doesn't mean fuck all to me. I can tell someone knows nothing about child psychology when they say, oh, look, these children are so happy. And I was like, oh, really? Right? One of my teachers pointed out to me that I had looked happier one year in high school for some reason that he couldn't place. He didn't know why all of a sudden I looked happier. And there was nothing in particular that changed in my life. I just started looking happier to him. I thought he had a way of communicating that to me. Through my parents, actually. Quite hilarious. Because he told them and they told me. And they didn't care. Right? What an interesting thing for a teacher to say. The fact is, my parents had absolutely no interest in my happiness whatsoever. It wasn't a thought on their mind. Right? It only became a thought on my mother's mind as I got older, when my mother's complete ambivalence to me was replaced by her tremendous guilt at not being there for us. So now she had never really cared, and now she had guilt. Guilt, right? And that just protected her from any, responsibility. Now guilt is the narcissist's best friend, right? I would try to talk about things for years while she was abusing, assaulting, and raping me on a regular basis. And she would just say, I can't talk about that. When I eventually got through the rage and find out what statement she could make emotionally that made any sense to her or to me, it was that she just felt so guilty she couldn't talk about it. But the fact is, she was right, but much more right for many more reasons. My mom becomes murderously enraged at having to communicate with normal emotional channels because she was never treated to that type of environment. It's scary for her, and it basically contradicts everything that she's learned to do to protect herself. Right? So like I said, you can't raise your mother and father. But I'm living with my mother, she's 73, and she does pick up a little bit just from the turn of my mind. My mom, I've learned, actually knows the difference between something that may be truth. She knows what sounds truthful to her and what doesn't. And some of what I say sounds truthful to her. So she has learned discriminating tools, right? My mom's a massage therapist, so I ask her for massages all the time, but she only ever gives me one when I really need it, right? And it's just a kind of banter I have with her. I don't really expect her to give me massages. There's nothing else to talk about, At the end of the day, she's a very hard person to make discussion with because she doesn't really volunteer. Like last night, I had to spend 15 minutes asking her about her day and if she had any interesting stories about the day until she finally told me, right? Which was a major financial issue. So she just keeps things to herself. She's not used to anyone asking her about her day, right? Interesting. My mom, and I say to my mom, when she's a little more sober and I said, I can understand why you get angry and you get testy. She'll bring a knife to a verbal banter, right? It's because you've been trapped all your life. You're used to living around people who don't give you a say in anything, right? And she never contradicts me. Isn't that disgusting? How fucking disgusting is that? I'm supposed to write beautiful poetry and novels about this world? You want me to write you a beautiful novel of human existence? Which, by the way, I'm doing. But you want me to write you a beautiful poem of all human existence? Which, by the way, I'm doing. You want to write you songs of the incredible knowledge that sings upon this earth, and then touch, tastes the lips, and uses those lips to scent the air of all the wild woods and visions that run through eternity, becoming visible as Mother Earth in skies and stars and moons, in the wonderful way that they dote upon the ripening of our grapes and our other fruits. Who has even begun to touch that creative music? Who has even begun to touch it? Who claims to have done more than even begun to touch it? Who claims such a thing? I'd love to see the arrogance of such a one as that. I'd love to see the arrogance and the inflated psychosis of such a person who lacks all fucking modesty and character and who would be scorned and mocked out of the company of any decent people on earth. Don't you think if you lived among a tribe of natural people that they would have modesty and they would be sexually grounded? Both things are really important. Right? I only want to be around people who can form committed and monogamous relationships with the opposite sex. I would never live by choice in any community that had people who didn't do that. We live in these communities every day with people who are non-monogamous and not even fully sexually functioning. What do you think that's going to feel like? And I've been around them. I've seen what it's like to live anywhere near them. And they produce disturbances in the ethereal field on a regular basis. Right? They're a different animal. They're like an animal that just sheds off waves of violence for any reason at any time in totally socially permissible ways. And this is the kind of verbal gunslingers that you get in the homosexual world. It's interesting that my first homosexual video yesterday was deleted by YouTube twice. Both times I uploaded it on 2 different channels, and yet everything else I uploaded has not been touched. It's hilarious. Fucking YouTube. La dee 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 dee. I love how the shadow of that, I think it's a crow or a raven. Yeah, I really haven't been disturbed here by anyone yet. It's thoroughly nestled I found this place years ago. I didn't start using it right away. I just sort of came here now and then and just ventured to peek and get to know it and see if anyone else was passing through here. And sure enough, nobody was. And the more time I've spent here, day after day, as you can see, I've gotten quite used to, I've made myself at home. And I love that grass, that pentagram right there. It's nice. And it's nice. Feels good. This is my home for the day. I think my mom is a bit bored sometimes at home, but that's okay. She's not working as much. She's got some money in the bank, and she's feeling pretty good. She's probably going to pick up a new TV one of these days. I'm sure she's just going to get bored and buy a new TV. I know she's going to do it without talking to me, but that's okay. I don't mind. I think that's part of the fun for her. I say, oh, bring me along if you're going to get a TV. And she's like, yeah, of course I will, because they're going to sell you just, anything. But the fact of the matter is, most TVs work, and I'm sure I wouldn't even notice if they were good or bad. I mean, let's face it, they're all fucking TVs. They're all decent, so I don't think you can really go bad. I mean, I'm sure you can get much worse deals than others, but it's a fucking TV. I mean, how fucked up could it be, right? My mom just watches like one or two shows on TV. It's no big fucking deal. You can see the golf ball, it's okay. It's always nice when they have special features. How many beautiful minutes of our lives were just discovering the special features of a new TV or a new computer or a new phone. It's like, oh, it's so much fun. Look what they did now. You can see your penis photos in 3 dimensions, and it has them getting erect digitally. Here they go. You can go up to a girl and be like, this is what I've got. Woo. It starts off like this, and he's like, it's supposed to be sunny, so it is. It looks clear. So I think the world is heating up. So we got the day. Woo! Yeah. I had to count coup. I mean, the Eagles have taught me to enjoy feasting on the spoils of war. People go to war with me, and they're just like, they're still licking their wounds. They're still fucking angry. There are people who tried to deal with me last Christmas, and they're done for. They're never gonna get theirs, and they can't touch me. They don't even know what I did. Oh man. Anyway, it has so much joy, and then yeah, but it's more nice to see that. What I found is that I don't win most of my fights. I mean, because that's not the point to me. I find it's easier to win fights by not trying to win them. You know, just let nature take its course. Have some humility. You know, if you know people are crazy, right? You get what you get. If you know they're crazy, there's only the only point of going to war with someone who's not crazy. If you're not crazy, and you have war with me, then I'm gonna take that seriously. But if you're crazy, I'm just gonna like go whatever. You're crazy. And even if people bring things to your doorsteps, or they can make it personal, or whatever, they're just crazy. But don't dismiss the fact that they're crazy, and stay away from them. I know a guy. He's kind of nice sometimes, but he's a psychotic. He lives in his car, and you know, he's never going to do anything in his life. He's never going to accomplish anything. But his life is valuable, and I think he's a very smart man. But he's not accomplishing anything. But he's doing what he needs to do. He's living in a bubble. And I feel similar. I think it makes me reflect upon myself, because I think that most people would see us as we're quite similar in that way, but we're not. And most people can't see the difference, which I feel proud of. Only a few people could tell the difference between him and me, like truly, in terms of our intellect. And that's kind of cool. But it's not him. What else is there to talk about? You know, I don't hold my mom completely responsible for not being there. Because I imagine if she could have, she would have. I appreciate the opportunity to let her know certain things about my body. And this way to, understand that, I medically understand my own body. Somewhat. I shouldn't say understand. I mean, I think, a fairly good mythology about it. I'll leave the understanding to other people. But I love my mom, and her wellness is of interest to me. She got off a plane a few years ago after talking to this Negroid psychopath who claims to be married to my brother, um, and she was really broken down, and she was shocked the whole plane ride home. She had been completely put out of her peace of mind completely, and you have to give. I gave you have to, like, it's her thing. She doesn't like me to get involved, so I just commiserated with her, and my first response wasn't anger necessarily, because I know my brother and I know this what kind of person this woman probably is. And I probably said something to my mom like, "Look, I think they're just unwell, Mom. Like, maybe you just want to limit your time with them." But she didn't listen to me, and it kept happening. you um, so that's her. That's on her. But they're psychopaths, and that's what they do to each other. And then she just made up with them, like, "Oh, okay." My mom's good that way, but it comes at a cost. Because what this black woman has done is started a very malfactored relationship with my mom that my mom believes is healthy. I'm pleased that they've reached a kind of compromise so that they can all get along. I mean, it seems, and I haven't, and I don't, shove myself in there. I don't involve myself in that way. So I'm not a disturbing element. If I let her do what she needs to do. Right? I don't interact with those people. So, and I've watched it. I know, okay, but time, the earth takes care of things eventually. And the fact is, they hurt my mom, and it's a place on the balance sheet that hasn't been balanced as far as I'm concerned. But we'll see how that goes. I think about it from time to time, and I think it's interesting because I can kind of anticipate what's going to happen. Now I know that this Negroid lady is completely irrational, so I would never even communicate with her. I don't even need to interact with her at all. which means that, well, that's good. Hail Satan. And I absolutely, at this moment, put a fucking reverse pentagram on her, in her belly, in her mind, and in her chest, in her lungs, in her feet, and in her hands, and in her entire body, and in her entire mind, and in her entire life. And communication has been and will be and continue to be established that will right what is wrong to everyone's complete satisfaction, honoring the full primary needs of human beings involved and human beings in general. So mote it be, and so saith the Son of Man. And the same goes for my brother and his home. And that just needed to be done today. So that's just a little homework I had to do. And that just starts doing its thing. Now I've taken an interest. I just waited years. Just take an interest. Because, they're Christians, so they practice black magic. Right? That's what Christians do. That's what Christianity is black magic. Okay? The Christians are black magicians. They may not know it. They think they're white magicians, but they're black magicians. Magically speaking, the Christian is the house nigger. They're the black magicians. They're the low-level black magicians. Right? And they've turned everyone, basically, if you're not a witch or you don't practice any magic, you pretty much are a black magician. You're a communist. You're a black magician. That's what everybody basically resorts to. It doesn't really matter if you're this or that, or your education, or the color of your skin, anything about you. You're a black magician unless you've actually started your own craft of magic. And what could that be? Well, that means that you understand that the world is run with words and ideas. But those ideas are made of words, ultimately. And they're in words. And you may understand a certain idea or spirit being in the word, and a certain different idea or a certain spirit being in this word. But at some level, it's all words. And in those words are different kinds of spirits. There's a spirit you could put into it, the spirit someone else could put into it. All kinds of things are put in words. Words are vessels, and they carry things. This is the level of creation that we have a lot to do with as human beings, which is the sounds we make and how we see things and how we think about things and how that affects how we see things and how we think about things. Now introduce, let's say, emotionally, huge amounts of stress and trauma into the emotional component of our sentient thinking, feeling, communicating process. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not, right? It doesn't matter what it's supposed to be, whether it fits into your world. Everyone in a communist global state is emotionally traumatized. Every single person. And you'll notice everyone's mind bears artifacts of this. Just like the world bears artifacts of certain so-called catastrophes, the biggest catastrophe has happened to the emotional body of human beings. Right? Everything else, Atlantis, the fucking flood, whatever, like this, that, whatever plagues, has nothing. The biggest fucking catastrophe, that total mind-altering, is the constant trauma passing through our behavior, not our genetics, placed on successive generations of the human emotional body. Which turns everyone into a black magician. Okay? Which is what I've spelled out in a lot of detail in the past, basically 7,000 videos that I've made. Okay, and the 50 or more books that I've written, and the tens of thousands of poems that I've scribed, is that this emotional trauma makes black magicians of everyone. So everyone's actually doing black magic all the time. I'm not saying anything else about it, just that's right. And then what can you do, or what have you done that advances your cause under those conditions, no matter who you are, what profession you're in? Well, general concepts I've introduced is, just like you might have learned to write and sign your name the way you do, where do you take time in your life to talk and think and feel the way you do? And what stresses do you find yourself encountering when you do that? What stresses might you encounter if you did that? And have you noticed, if you do it, that it actually improves how you think, hear, and see, and smell, and how you put together your psychic world? Where you account for the resources you have, come ill or not, in collecting power in ways that help you achieve the first order of interest that you have in protecting your body, your first estate, your mind, and also going back even to when you were in your mother's womb, what your system and every animal's medicine naturally does to protect itself. That you have the integrity to have any body at all shows that form, like a language, has been given to a fundamental spirit or idea which you have brought into the world. You are a series of ideas. You're a great idea. You're a great spirit. And this is your language. Your body is a kind of language. How you are, how you live, how you think is a language. And a lot of that is something you've been forced to resort to as a communist. Right? Right? A spirit made flesh, made into a modern person. Right? A spirit made flesh, reduced to nothing, and then made into you, who then can do various things to become somebody from nobody. Right? You're somebody, but you're nobody until you work hard enough to be somebody. Right? And that's the only way to get the opposite sex to want to fuck you, is to be psychologically promiscuous. In other words, you start making gambits when you haven't actually really fundamentally protected your body, protected your mind. You're actually vulnerable. And because when you're doing things in life, because you're vulnerable, not just even though you're vulnerable, but because you're vulnerable, and you're put into a kind of vulnerability where you have to do something, however invulnerable you are. You have to start making leaps in how the people around you are behaving, how to get along with them, how to be somebody, how to deal with stresses involved with it, how to enjoy getting along with this person, how to deal with people that don't like you, right? How to basically fit in, right? And feel like, you're doing in your mind what you envision everyone else doing when you're supposed to feel okay with what you're doing, which is all cultural communist training at this point. Because you're never allowed to be in a natural environment by yourself for very long periods of time to establish actually what your voice sounds like in your own head and how it influences what you're thinking about nature. How many children, how many people listening to this ever spent 3 consecutive hours outside in a safe place like the backyard of your home, guaranteed through long practice, uninterrupted solitude, to talk and make sounds and think about anything and everything you had to think about and feel in life with no interruptions, and then have that day after day after day? That's the normal school of a child. Then you ask them after that 3 hours or after that day, hey, what did your thoughts, where did your thoughts go today? Is there something you would like to say? And maybe they saw an animal, or maybe they saw this. But just because they tell you they saw an animal, just like I'll come home and tell my mom I saw a squirrel, that doesn't mean that's all they did. But that their thoughts were so pure that it is enough to say that the squirrel looked at them in a wonderful way that touched their heart. And that encompasses 7,000 videos. Because the thinking is never at any point fundamentally disconnected from the living intelligence of nature. It's all being borne along. None of it is ever lost. People sometimes, I think, do things because they don't want to get lost. They don't want their ideas to get lost. You should write that down. You wouldn't want your ideas to get lost. And I've written down many things. But it's not just that I didn't want to get lost. It's that I wanted them to see them grow. I wanted to know that my thinking was growing. I wanted to know what I thought when I could say whatever I wanted to. And the first time I sat down to write my first book, when I was about 18, 19 years old, I was open-hearted and prepared at whatever I needed to write. And the first word of that book and the title of that book was Susanna, which means water in the desert.
And it's about a prostitute who sometimes felt like she was living inside a very deep ocean. And it was the only way that she could feel a sense of dignity that was contiguous with something like the way she might have used to feel when she was a child. And in one of these interludes, she is approaching her pimp. And the next thing you know, she confronts him. Next thing you know, she's waking up with bruises all over her body in a pile of trash in an alley. Her legs sticking from sweat. The day is already warm onto these bags of trash, which are stinking and sending off fumes. And she gets up and she goes to her apartment, barely. She staggers home because she has a place to go. She cleans up and she goes out to buy a fake pair of earrings that she's had her eyes on, and she's determined to make a statement of beauty about herself and what she deserves to be treated like in her own mind. And a man named Charlie Pringle is there. He's a Texas man. Made some money in oil, perhaps. Got his way into the jewelry business. And there's something about this woman, and he has his own interlude with human consciousness, the fundamental water of human consciousness. And something in him just stirs. And instead of giving him the fake earrings she came to buy, he gives her a pair of absolutely precious jewels that look the same. He gives her the genuine article. And in this way, and in my novels, I completely break down the idea that we have to involve money in the, forget what money is or isn't, in the fundamental communications of human beings, and that those who are in communication with the earth are able to make those distinctions between what it's worth to be a human being and what it's worth to be a human being based on all kinds of arbitrary conditions, however seamlessly well enforced they are by generations of communist propaganda. And also, like a lot of my art, this story presaged future events of my life in a very big way that has meaning that actually follows into this very video and into this very discussion. There are nerves of that story in this. There are nerves of meaning. There are nerves of nature's love. There are nerves of the creative intelligence of love itself coursing through my veins. And the first word I ever wrote in my first book was the word Susanna, the water in the desert. This isn't just a human who's intelligent. This is a human whose mind has had a lot of solitary, uninterrupted access with nature. That's all. And the hypothesis to begin and conclude this particular chapter with would be, when you use your voice, your senses and your intelligence are enhanced. Why do you think that is? Because if you don't have a say in your own thoughts, if you can't hear the sounds they make, how can you ever have any decent control over anything? If most of what you're thinking every day is to repeat Bible verses in your mind, as though you wrote them yourself, why don't you make up your own Bible verse? Right? Why don't you make up your own Bible verse? For I did shat my pants, and whosoever should see my shat, they should be very offended. Luke chapter 1. You know? Why don't people write their own Bibles? All these Christians, they've never written their own sacred text. What a fucking miserable bunch of black magicians you are, hey? You never fucking use your own voices, right? Holy fuck. The pleasure you must be giving your owners. I'd love to write something and billions of people are going to repeat this as though God himself had said it. And I am the Lord thy God, who has poured many wonderful things into your useless breast, that you should have the faith of the peon that you are. And if you have enough faith, I will favor you
with a little bit of my clemency, I'll allow you to work off some of your sins for a fraction of a moment of time before you die miserable deaths, happily going off to the lands of the free and the home of the stupid. Hail Satan and pass the ammunition. Too bad we don't write that in the books. Why don't they write that? Why wouldn't you put that in the beginning of the Bible? What would happen to people if they read that every day? What's so scary about it? Right? Let's examine human fear. What's so scary about trusting other people? You trust bears, you trust squirrels, you trust eagles, you trust stones, you trust. Why don't you trust other people? You say you trust the entire earth, the whole. It's all a fucking. I mean, lots of things can kill you, and you trust all kinds of things every day. I trust these cretinous 55 IQ bus drivers sometimes, who basically they tell me that they shouldn't be trusted with people's lives. They tell me explicitly that they shouldn't be trusted with people's lives. They have no proportional sense of the honor of driving a bus. They think they're just bus drivers. If I drove a bus, I'd be like, I have people's lives in my hands all fucking day long. And you bus drivers, you look spiffy, and then you look good about it. Now, there are bus drivers who do that. I love them. They're the true bus drivers. And they make it look good, because once you reach the level of the true responsibility and honor of a bus driver, you turn into like the guru of human existence. Because everything pours out into the way you treat your clients, into the way you feel doing your job, into everything you do as you drive the bus. You're like a song, right? And I'm not telling you, you're telling me. That is how the best bus drivers in the world operate. And they're telling you. If you're a bus driver, you should listen to them, or they should listen to you. Good job. And it's awful when you see people who haven't found that in their life, and they do a job and they don't have the spirit of it in them. I may not do much of a job by your reckoning, but I've put my entire spirit into it, in everything I think and do. And it shows everywhere I go. But do you think anybody notices? And that's okay, because that's part of what I do. I just want to blend in. If people had any idea how many books I'd written, the kinds of ideas I were pursuing, and I'm just at the beginning. I'm a fucking infant in what I'm trying to fucking do in this world. I'm not even born yet. I'm a fucking little blob of flesh, like a slug moving over some fertile ooze or vomit from a giant elephant coming out of the barks and trunks of trees. But yet, I'm the best that I can be, and I have a lot to look forward to. Where are you in the scheme of it all? Have you not become ooze again? A little bit of ooze on the shoe of Satan? And he looks at it and goes, I was going to wipe that off, but it looks very ambitious. I'm nothing. I'm nothing. I'm absolutely nothing. I'm nothing to you. I'm nothing to anyone. I may be something to my mother from time to time. Not only that, I'm smart enough to know I'm nothing. I'm smart enough to be acutely and fully aware of it. So aware of it, in fact, that it gives me a certain dark joy. It's like, like remember when you were 5 and the world left you alone? When you're 5, you're nothing, right? It's the most beautiful kind of nothing to be, because the world leaves you alone. Until they force you to go to school, they pretty much leave you alone. Right? I sit in this forest and it's like, The only people that need to know I'm here are my mommy and daddy. This is my school. This is my office, my orifice. I've laid a curse today on my brother's wife. Hell, Satan. No, but she's a dangerous human being. Yeah. And she's been very dangerous to my home, and she clearly controls my brother quite a bit, and I think she should have everything she wants. In fact, that's probably what she'll get, everything she wants, and that's what I wish for her. And I've also put a curse on the fat fucking white woman that lives at the end of my hall. I've been very patient with her, and I'm not combative with such people. It's just, life takes its own natural course. Hail Satan. She has reverse pentagrams up and down her body, around her house. She's fully cursed by me, and she will undergo her part in the primary communications of wellness for her and everyone concerned. She has made herself an issue in the peace of my home, and too many times. And I've been very patient. I have no particular dislike for her. I don't dislike these people. I really don't. But somehow I think it makes my magic stronger because it's not personal. I have to take care of my home, and it's just like spring cleaning. You know, like I get rid of people, I curse people, I get them out of my life, and then my life becomes more peaceful. It's amazing, and it's actually I'm destroying the codependency. The curse destroys all the codependency, all of the bad assumptions anyone was making in the course of our interaction, right? However expedient they may have been, right? The communism of this situation is no longer expedient for me, which is codependency is communism. Right? Makes sense, right? What else is there to talk about? So it's probably what, 10:30, 11. It's so nice. It's so pretty here. I would say it was tropical except for the fucking cold. It's middle of June. What can I tell you? It's like the 16th to 17th of June, and it's bitch ass cold. So, and in this forest in the shade, it'll probably be like that way all year. You know, and that's good in a way. I guess on a hot day, this would be the place to come. And but there's sun around me. I tend to stay in the shade, but I got it made here. I guess you can get it made in the shade. It's better than having it made in the sun, right? Because you can only stay in the sun so long. I could stay in the shade longer than I could stay in the sun. Yeah, so I can see my brother as a young person again, like my sister, 8, 9 years of age, 10 years of age. But my brother changed a lot. By the time 12, 13, he was starting to try to steal friends away from me and things like that, and just strange behavior. I don't think even he understood it. And you could see that his loyalties had been divided, you might say. My brother's loyalties have been divided. With my sister, her loyalties have been divided. And what that means is they'd become psychotic. They're kind of like emotional cannibals, right? Serpent tongue. In other words, they'll be a part of this, that, or the other. They'll rationalize anything. Watch out. And indeed, they did enormous amount of violence to me, and they rationalize it, and their their minds went into a violent state between the age of 10 and 13. But they're better able to work for the state, right? It gave them a chance at living, right? So the psychotic break, if you will, that their loyalties being divided, um, could be seen as a positive strategy for learning to live in the world that they had to live in. They didn't have to live in a world where I was safe. They just had to live in a world where they were safe. Do you understand? So there's a division of loyalties, and the moral development at that point becomes what? Interrupted. And the sexual development at that point has been interrupted. And so that person really is kind of a communist homosexual at that point. Whichever, wherever, whatever way they decide to be sexually, they basically are expressing a lack of sex function. And so whatever sex that person has, that is the solution to the problem. In as much as the psychosis, where it might make them a more violent person in many respects, is actually a positive solution that allows them to live in the world. So the more sick your siblings become, the more likely they're adequately mirroring what the world wants to produce in their minds. It wants to turn them into emotional cannibals whose loyalties are divided fundamentally in their minds. So you're looking at not just a split tongue, but a split mind. That kind of person can rationalize anything, right? They have to. Like I said, like when there's too much pressure on the emotional body, everything becomes about pain. And for a child, our genius, which is amazing, basically goes into making sure we don't feel our pain. And then as you get older, children get nervous. That's when the young girls start tittering a lot, and it's harder to ignore what's wrong around them. And then they enter into another gambit for rebirth, where they have to become basically a completely different person if they're going to be worth anything to the world that they're basically immersed in. And while their brains are more sensitive than that of a baby, they have absolutely no support proportional to the attendant grief, the attendant stress, the attendant social isolation, the attendant hormonal changes, and all kinds of stuff. And all they do is they get some education on gender neutrality or something, and you get to paint your hair a different color and experiment with licking pussies instead of cocks. Whatever the fuck they do. I mean, at that point, you got more drinking, you got more drugs, you've got more performance-oriented. Sports becomes incredibly important to some students. Patriotism, the band, thinking about joining the army, this kind of thing. Sports, tribal relations, Childhood is just, what's that? That's just something that, you don't need anymore. It's time for all good boys and girls to be strong. But the fact that more and more people are living at home and through into their 20s tells you it isn't, in fact, any more fun a place to grow up in than it was when I was young. Take your time. If you have a home where you can stay at home into your 30s and 40s, like I have, great. I mean, I've come and gone. I lost my home at a young age. I had no home when I was born. I was born homeless, but I had different kinds of homes, and my home changed. The same home became a different home. The same home that had become the best place in my childhood became a gulag that left me with no prospects in life but that of a person getting out of prison with no skills and no reason, in fact, to believe that any skills that they have is something they want to give to other people for a wage that the Bible says is death. And everything else says the same thing. And you're thinking, God, one, the Bible's correct, and two, we're fucked. Unless you're capable, like Jesus, of being tortured and then becoming a completely different person and satisfying an idea based in human biology of resurrection, which is a natural part of biology. Now you're taking this natural part and you're turning into the fundamental engine of psychosis, of dividing your loyalties in terms of becoming someone else, not regenerating your natural being, but becoming someone else. So I saw people go off to the army and they would come back someone else. I saw people who were 9 years old and they'd come to 15 years old and they'd become someone else. I'm sure they've regenerated in many natural ways, but now the division of loyalties demands, it taxes the natural resurrection biology of the mind, which helps keep up. You're wondering, or I was wondering, how do people who are in portrayal keep up the act, so to speak? One is they have to get as much as possible out of people that they're charming and relationships and stuff. Having lots of them or having one that's really helpful. But also that it's using their own life energy. It's of critical nuclear interest to constantly reinvent yourself and change your hair. Women are constantly changing their hair color, changing their makeup. People change their beliefs. Maybe they get a tattoo. They want to be different people. Now, granted, you can get a tattoo when you feel like you've basically, through your own effort, have become a different person or a better person or a stronger person. I'm not saying that all tattoos are wrong. It's just getting a tattoo in itself doesn't make you a different person. But if you've done something you think has made you a stronger person, then yeah, get a tattoo. It'll mean that much more. Or maybe you'll get a tattoo and then you'll go through something and you'll be like, huh, I just earned my tattoo. Because your body and what you do to your body is going to relate to the rest of your life. This is like a book. You know, you can read people like a book. And most people's books I don't want to read because, quite frankly, I don't think they've read it. I don't want to read them. And it's like, I've read my own story daily for years, and people will take a look at me and they'll read me like a book, and they don't seem to ever learn anything about me. You know what I mean? But they feel like they've cracked the cover and they know basically what I'm useful for. Right? And you know that if you're a girl and guys have treated you like a sexual object, like when they tried to befriend you, but really you're just a nice piece of ass, you know that you're being used for what you're good for. They've read you like a book. That's what you're good for. But they're never going to really get to know you. They don't want to. No matter how much they say they do, a lot of people just never want to get to know you. That chocolate just flew out of there. That's so funny. You know what I need now? I need a pillow. Hold up. Over here. It's a little better. My grandpa and my other grandpa, my grandma, my mom, my dad, my uncles, they did a lot. I think they've done a lot that I don't know. It saddens me a bit, but it's really great just to acknowledge it. You know, my family, my brothers, my sister, psychopathic though they are, right? From behind that psychopathy, they've done a lot with their lives. But to me, they'll only just show the face of the psychopath because that's what I've become to them. And they in turn just see me as ill. The fact that they induced dramatic changes in my medical and physical well-being, notwithstanding. So this is for me as I go on in life, it's a matter of clinical, medical. I mean, I can't really consult with a doctor, so I'm my own doctor. nobody can really talk to me about this. It's amazing how people just generalize. Oh, you must have felt really betrayed. You should go talk to a psychiatrist. It's like, yeah, betrayed. Like everybody. So, um, I think betrayal is a very descriptive word that takes care of a lot, but it's not fulfilling. It doesn't really tell the whole tale, does it? By the time someone's betraying you, that doesn't tell the whole story, but it's a very important part of the story. The part where so and so betrayed you, right? That's a change in the story. We're not friends anymore. Things have changed, but from behind that treachery, many people are doing a lot of what they need to do. It doesn't make it right, but they are doing what they need to do. Now, when we say it's wrong at that point, we're not just saying that the behavior is wrong, right? We're saying that amidst people doing what they need to do, which they deserve every credit for, something being very wrong is also communicating itself through all the nooks and crannies of human existence. Now, our judgment could be wrong. Our expectations could be wrong. We could have been born with vastly disproportionate expectations of what life was supposed to be. You think you're a baby, you start to think life was about you, people are all supposed to love you, and you never have to work, and everyone just feeds you and wipes your bum and does things for you. And when you're 16, your mom and dad, they tell that to you, and they tell you the story of your birth, and they say, you see, you just got too used to people loving you and taking care of you, and now it's time you got to take care of yourself. We're not going to do that for you anymore. You understand? You can't, life's not going to give you a living. They're not just going to give you a job. You have to fight for it, right? The world doesn't owe you anything at this point. What? I don't need the world to owe me anything. You were never in debt to me. I just really enjoyed the idea of being treated with respect and consideration. Don't give me everything I need and then slowly take it away as though it never existed in the first place. You know what that is? That's communist black magic. That's Christianity. Do you understand? I'm doing you a favor. I'm doing a job that is given to witches to do on the earth. And the fucking neo-pagan witches you buy in the fucking chapters in Indigo in the bookstores of the world that tell you how to cast spells and write your name in blood or whatever the fuck. It's like, they're useless shite. They're just making money off of your ignorance and theirs. Right? Everyone is forced to resort to communist black magic. People get a lot of stuff done from within these synergers, but now the husk of their body of Christ, right, is extremely inhuman in many respects. It betrays a semblance of immorality. It betrays something wrong in a lot of the assumptions that we are either led or forced to resort to making about other people and the world. And not that it owes us a living, but that it is even worth us working for it. What is the world that it's worth working for it? What is the nature of this religious prerogative that seems to pass the lips of people so easily? The legality of their beliefs, the oddness of their visions of why they're working and what that flag represents, and how all these people could be such buffoons, but you continue to vote for them, and how the red people are always bad and the blue people are always good, and nobody seems to understand anything when it comes time to doing anything that allows you to take your life away from this theatrical boondoggle and reconsider all of your fundamental assumptions. And not that they're all necessarily wrong, but also because they were necessarily natural to you to expect that people would care for you and that care had a certain fidelity. We care about you because you're worth something, not just to us, but to the earth around us. You're a beautiful animal. We're going to take care of you. We're going to respect you. We're going to let you, because you're human, define what you need to do on the earth. And that's what we That's what we would like to do, to get to know you. And we're going to have to be really open-hearted. We're going to have to expect to be surprised, right? The child is going to surprise the fuck out of you. Are you ready for that? Right? All politics to one side. This is time to trust. You want to trust someone? You want to put all your trust in something? You divide your loyalties between your government, your job, your paycheck, the monetary system, Yahweh, science, quantum physics, your favorite TV show, a fashion magazine, your favorite porn star. I don't care. The labels on your clothing. Put all of your trust in your fucking child. Get rid of all that other shit. Put your trust in your child. Can you do that? They are the government. They are your money. They are your bank account. Protect them as much as you protect your bank account and your fucking government. And they will never have to go to war for these fucking people. Stop practicing black magic. Stop dividing your loyalties and telling your child it's all for you. When you divide your loyalties among everything but your child, that's black magic. That's psychosis. You're teaching them to be psychotic. And that's how it's passed along, simply like that. Your life should be about your child. Otherwise, you shouldn't have one. And you might be thinking, well, how can I do that? And those are assumptions. You assume you even know what that is. You assume it must be painful. You assume it must be awful. You assume it must be stupid because you've never even given it any fucking thought. You see how stupid you are? You can't even think about that without being scared and anxious. You've got time to work 1,000,000 hours a year and learn the names of every player on your favorite fucking baseball team, but you haven't put 2 fucking minutes together to think about what would happen if you put all your fucking trust into your own flesh and blood. That's because you're a communist black witch. Not anymore. Hail Satan and pass the ammunition. Not anymore. Because I don't know about you, but I'm trying to be that less and less every day. And if you're watching this, probably you as well, are trying to be less connected, less entrusted to this world religion of communism and codependency every fucking day. It's amazing. Hail Satan. Quite a kingdom here. Huh. That sun is coming out. I'm tempted to get up and go stand in the sun. I'm so lazy. I'll be right back.
came back because I have a strong sense of responsibility to my viewership, but also because the sun was lovely. Um, Part of my take back is every one of the people I knew as a child that I brought my heart, my mind, and my flesh and blood being around, which had my own wonderful thoughts, my own wonderful moments of inspiration, and just mere emotional delight. Every moment of merest emotional delight you had as a child was a work of genius. Understand that. That's part of your great work. Everything that matters to you in life is about the aesthetic intelligence of the mirthful or meaningful or even melancholy moments of delight that you've enjoyed in the natural kingdom of this earth. Sacred. Much to be cherished, each in our own private way. Now, every time I brought my being around an uncle, an aunt, or a person as a child, to a school, and giving the legal conditions, the social conditions, everything, the environment. And I brought a piece of my heart. I brought a piece of the meaning of love throughout my life, what the meaning of love would be like. So I'm thinking of my Uncle Art. You know, pleasant, affable Uncle Art, you know, and I'm bringing my heart to Uncle Art. But Uncle Art doesn't talk to me. The only thing Uncle Art ever says to me is that one day I'm going to have a lot of emotional baggage. That's literally the only thing he ever says to me. Nothing else whatsoever. You think about the irony of that, okay? Now, I brought my heart to this man, whom, as far as I know now, is a pedophile, okay? Loves children, high school biology teacher, retired. Many of these children continue to worship him, okay? This is not a man worthy of their worship, okay? He doesn't care about children. I know a little bit about his emotional history because he's my mother's brother and I can talk to her. The oldest son, of a family of, I think, 7 or 8 children, one of whom passed away at the age of 3. He wanted to become a doctor, but couldn't. And this deeply affected him. He's a very proud young man. And so when people can't do, what do they say? They teach. These are not always the most pleasant teachers. I've had teachers like that. People who could not do, and so they teach. I'm not a teacher. You couldn't stick me in that fucking room for all the money in the world. But if I had good feelings of love, if I brought my good heart around this man, he's just a pleasant, narcissistic sociopath and a pedophile. And understand, like, a pedophile loves children. We're talking about people who love children. Pedophiles love children. It doesn't have to do with sex, necessarily. You just assume that. I don't love children. I'm not a pedophile. Right? I don't love children. I'm an etherphile. I love ether. Right? And because I love ether and respect ether, I respect the ether of children. Children have their own ether. And I don't need it. I get a lot of my own ether. Right? If you're a child with ether, you can just go fuck off. You've got your own ether. You've got ether to spare. I don't need it. Thank you very much. I've got my own childhood going on right here. Right? Children need not apply. This is not for children. But this is for people who've been deprived of their ether. Because children are fine. They don't need me. Right? They just need their mommy and daddy. Just like I just needed my mommy and daddy. Just like you just need your mommy and daddy. I mean, that's the natural fucking order. Hail Satan. You don't need teachers. You don't need me as a teacher. You need your mommy and daddy. You need the bro and the sister that's right there with you, that fucking lives with you, that fucking sees your pain,
Who hears your pain? Who sees your fucking tears? Who feels your fucking agonies? Right? That's your best fucking friend right there. I'm not your friend. I don't like you. You don't like me. I'm just some random weirdo talking in the forest. Hail Satan. There's strength in that. There's generosity of spirit in that. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to offer whatever I can. And I think it's something because it courses through me and I feel great. That's honest. This is honest power. So I have to take my heart back from these people in a way. I put a curse on my Uncle Art now that I mention him. Reverse hexagram through his entire body, his home, and everything connected with him. To reverse, remove, and restore any ethereal destruction from being my heart and my mind and spirit and anything to do with him whatsoever. And it doesn't mean like that's it. And so mote it be, saith the Son of Man. And it's just clearing stuff, like, because I like all these people in a way, or if I like them as a child, I'm invested in that. That's a part of my love. If you love your Uncle John, right, and he sexually abuses you at some point, on some level, you still love your Uncle John because you, as a child, like you truly gave your love to this person. Now your love is so worth so much that your love is almost defined by everyone you give it to. You're like, oh, my love, I gave my love to them, and what is my love? My love is who I gave it to. My love is where I took my love. Here's my love, and I'm 5 years old, and I'm filled with my love, right? Your mom goes, oh, my love, right? But do your parents know you're actually filled with love? Jesus is fucking nothing compared to you. You're filled with love. Look at you. You're forgiving this communist fucking black world state that we're in, and you're just like, hey man, it's cool. Huh. I'm just gonna play with my Lego and just climb onto my fucking bed, and I'm gonna sit there and stare at a picture of Malia for 5 minutes, and I'm gonna go and take a piss and play some video games. Like, woo! And you're filled with love. You're filled with energy, right? But that doesn't mean that everything going on around you is perfect. You have a lot of love to give, and your love is getting defined by this. It's in printing, it's in training. This is your love. And if this environment doesn't love you back as much as you deserve, right? Which is actually a remarkably non-trivial subject, by the way, considering how little time and space is ever put to it in print or in any research whatsoever. And so it's up to the poets, it's up to the witches, and those who want to raise themselves above the communist black witchcraft that everybody, there's the number 13 right there, everybody's up to, Book Canon. I'm getting different runes appearing and stuff as I say. Whoa, some thunder. Taking, and you're defining your love. It's not your fault. It's what you do. Part of your love is what your love does. And it takes meaning for itself from the people it loves. It says, hey, that's my dad's brother, I love him. That's my mom's brother, I love him. Of course I love him. You may not feel like love, but if somebody asks you, do you love your Auntie Hilda? You'd say, yeah, of course I love my Auntie Hilda. She's my Auntie Hilda, right? You love everyone, right? You may not always like them, but you love them. So you're you're like the king of your world, and you're giving all your love away, and it's changing your love as you do that. If you give your love to someone who's not worthy of your love as an adult, what does that tell you? You say, oh, something's wrong. You're giving your love to someone unworthy of your love. That's like almost like a sickness. That'd be like a codependency, right? It's like, how, and you might say, how did you define your love that you can so easily give it to this person? It looks like you're used to giving your love to people who are unworthy of it. And so your love, in its sense, and what you think of your love and what it's worth has changed depending on whomever you gave it to at a time in your life where you were most inclined to give it to everyone and everything. It doesn't sound fair, but it's true. And it defines who you are almost for the rest of your life. And think about it again, how much of the world competes for the loyalty and the trust and the love, and in fact the divided loyalties of children. And how many of these people around children are actually have had divided loyalties occur in their mind, say between, well, it could be many different ages, but say between the age of 9 and 15, where they became a completely different person. And they need to become someone, by the way, the person they became in school and through time had to become someone who could become other people more easily. So now you have to be born again in a way so you can get used to being born again in this way on a regular basis. So you can kind of become someone different whenever you needed to. And you needed to be able to become different people to now you've grown, you've got a body, a heart, you're 16 years old, but now you've got to like grow your personality, all kinds of other stuff, and you need to be able to become all kinds of different people. You're surrounded by all kinds of different people. Now you're not 3 years old and you see two people all day, your brother and your mom or your dad. Now it's like there's hundreds of people for you to concern yourself with at any moment prospectively. Clients, job, people, customers, retailers, wholesalers, this, that, and in between all the little crevices. So people learn to be one sort of robotic person, or they become very different people to different people, and they have to learn to wear many hats and all this types of stuff. And in all this time, right, nobody ever learns to give all of their time and energy to their own flesh and blood. Everything it's being given to everything in the sense of love, their patriotism, that no matter how despotic their country, no matter how despoiled or dismayed or disenchanted their country land may become, they love their country. They love the government. They love the spirit of America. It's just amazing because their heart has been entrained to that at an early age. And the more untrustworthy the objects of a child's affection and love, for any reason, and in terms of what we biologically and psychologically require as the full and native animal of man, a matter of great interest and a matter of great debate, at least, right, between you and the world as to what you are and what the world wants to assume you are. And it treats you, by the way, it doesn't tell you what you are. It treats you like a narcissist in the way that it thinks of you and what you're useful for. So as you get older, the school is training you in terms of what you're useful for, and to learn to become someone who can become different people to fulfill more demanding roles. Not just at your work, but in the stage of history where everyone in a communistic global state is doing everything basically they're supposed to do, while still thinking what they're supposed to think, while still thinking that they're doing whatever they want, and they're thinking whatever they want. So as Huxley said, the most pleasant prisoners ever, the most pleasant prison possible. And the only thing that makes it unpleasant, like people who are drooling and doing heroin, is if the guy in the fucking opium den looks up and goes, "Hey, the numbers aren't looking good. We're losing a lot of people to poverty, mental anguish and suicide, death and dismemberment. Oh, shut up. This is the way it should be. We love our country." And how much thought are you going to get from those people? There's a reason why religion is the opiate of the masses, because everything is the opiate of the masses. The masses behave like a heroin addict. You're never going to reason with them, right? And they're never going to run out of heroin. So what do you want to do with that? And nobody ever tells you that's the problem. That's one way to frame the problem of living. Everyone's a heroin addict, and they're never going to run out of heroin. What would you do? Well, you've got to look into what human beings are. You've got to give them what they never gave you. You've got to figure out what human beings really are and how much love really means. Even if you've never been loved, you have to figure out how to fucking even imagine people could actually be loved so they didn't feel as shitty as you feel. You've got to do something for yourself and the world that they never did for you. You got to figure out who you are and what you deserve according to your own voice, according to your own flesh and blood, and what you deserve and always deserved, no matter what you imprinted upon as to what you did or did not deserve from the people you first imprinted your love upon. Right? Now we're getting into communist mass pedophilia, because all these people say to this day that they love you, but have never opened a school, a class, a moment, or given you they give you 15 minutes off to fucking impregnate your wife or smoke a pack of cigarettes, but they don't give you 5 minutes off to think about what I'm saying. Right? We're cutting through the black communist magic. Ooh. And the YouTube algorithms aren't smart enough to delete this video. They didn't think anyone would ever catch on. They, you, me, whomever. The aliens. Hello, Captain. People don't have to think everything we think they think to behave or operate in a way as though they think everything we think they think. You know, we are always making up what we think people think, but it doesn't mean we're wrong. Even if they don't think what we think they think, they might as well think what we think they think. You know what I'm saying? An example. Someone does something to you, say, do you not like me or something? Did I do something to you? Right? And that's what you think they think. And they'll be like, no, but like, okay, then tell me, what were you thinking? Because it looks as though you don't like me. They're like, oh, I see. Okay, pardon me. You didn't want an ice pick up the ass. My mistake. So you see that these sort of these funny, but they're also actually quite dire auguries of how the human mind really behaves at a mass level. I mean, do you think it looks like the people of the world like children? Does it look like we really love children? Does it look like we really care about and respect our elders and children and the human race and the spirit of reason and fairness and the goodness of the earth itself and all of her aboriginal wisdom and knowledge? Does it look like that to you? I mean, get fucking real, right? And yet, we're supposed to just accept it? Admit that we're, what, helpless? It's too big a problem? You know, basically nobody has done anything about the problem. Nobody's doing anything about the problem. And nobody even wants to talk about the problem. You've been born in 2020 after revolutions aplenty. And you're in a world where none of your human family wants to even talk about the problem. It's one big codependent family. And the white elephant in the room is like every motherfucker in the room. You know? They make Jacobian cannibals look positively friendly. people who need to, I've discovered, eventually find out that it's not a good idea to fuck with me. And what I've learned is that it's actually a good idea for me to know this because, you know, it's just a matter of fact that it's not a good idea to fuck with me. I've learned that over time. Like, as I said that, there was a massive pentagram actually being cast all around me. And it's just not a, I've just discovered that. I mean, I don't do anything. I don't have to do anything. It's just not a good idea to fuck with me. There's not much I have to do, usually. If you fuck with me, you're probably really out of balance. Do you understand? And you're on a tipping point. And sometimes people just want to be tipped in the right direction. And I'm happy to tip you. I'll do a little tipping if you like. I'll tip you, I'll point you in the right direction. Which is probably going to be, by your own desire, as far away from me as possible. All I have to do is tell the truth. Most people don't want to hear the truth. Because violent people are avoiding the truth as much as possible. And people who avoid the truth as much as possible, and so much so that they're allowing other people to be injured, and even their own children to suffer cruelly, then they sometimes need to be pointed in a different direction. And their own weaknesses are to be reflected back to them, to the point that they feel very uncomfortable. They feel now, from a weakness that they've allowed themselves to inflict upon other people, they now feel something that they don't like, which is their own weakness reflected back onto them. Someone is showing them something that they don't like. They're not getting everything they want out of the situation. And a lot of people, cowardly, sick, psychotic, when they see they can't get what they want out of the situation, as you well know, probably on the internet, once they see they can't get what they want, then things can become quite uncomfortable for them. I once spent several days debating someone around the flat earth. And they were so uncomfortable the entire time. Eventually, they deleted the entire thread, right? I recently had someone lying to me about something, it doesn't matter what it was, and I eventually got them to delete their comments. They were so ashamed of themselves. They didn't want anyone to see. They'd made it clear through their own comments how truly mentally ill they were. They thought they could lie a little bit to me. They thought they could, and they had a belief, and they were supporting that belief with lies, which is how most people support their beliefs, with lies. They figure if you know something to be true, then it doesn't matter what you make up. You know it's true. So if you can just convince people it's true, that's all that matters, because you know it's true. So you can make anything up you want. A lot of people have strong beliefs because they like being able to make up whatever shit they like that enforces their belief. That's where they put their energy into, right? They're domesticated. They're a domesticated animal. Everything you think enforces your fundamental beliefs, which fundamentally corral your mind and come off as a compulsive interest in actually distributing that grief and that compulsion to others. And that's kind of communist codependency, right? And you can catch certain people with that. And then they just, they're their own worst enemy at that point. Because, in fact, in communism, you are your own worst enemy, essentially. You're always your own worst enemy. Because your thoughts, no matter what they are constantly reinforcing ideas and words or beliefs around you, right? A language, a way of thinking, a way of talking. Like, the English language is not just a language, it's a way of thinking and talking. Most languages. Your way of life is a language. It's a way of being a communist, a Canadian, an American communist, is a total way of thinking. Right? That in a sense, shrouded in your entire life, so that all of your thoughts maintain that shroud. They pay it tribute. You are devoted to it. It is like an extra body, an extra capsule for you and your family into posterity. You know, no matter what you do as an American, at least you got to be an American, right? Fat, rich, blue, black, yellow, whatever. You're an American, right? You never do anything that basically goes outside of the sarcophagus, the shell of being an American. You crack that shell, you find another American. You crack that shell, another American. It's just American all the way. Right? And that all is held. You're held in America. And America is all. Right? Being an American is the most you could ever be, and the most you need to be, because an American is like such an amazing thing to be. The mind of the American is circumscribed by the best knowledge, the best beliefs you can find in everything that America touches, everything you need to be, everything that anyone ever was meant to be by birth. So it's a complete God complex, essentially. A complete, and if it was actually reasonable and it actually looked as though it understood about the fundamental nature of the reciprocal exchanges of air and oxygen and blood with the natural environment to which we are disposed in tremendously psychic ways by birth, and so must be at leisure to exercise certain capacities, certain judgments, and certain better than worse conditions for the epochs of our development that our birth has prefigured. The worth of every successive birth of our lives prefigured by everything we need the first day of our life. And you should think of human beings as needing everything that a newborn baby requires at all times. Everybody needs that. When you see a drunk, right, a lot of times they act like babies. They need as much as a baby needs because they've shedded, in a sense, all of the other artifice. They're sitting there on the sidewalk and they need someone to pick them up and put a blanket around them and lay them into bed and maybe make them breakfast in the morning or just give them some place to puke, talk to them, maybe get them to stop for 5 minutes to shovel down some food before they go back out to buy their next whiskey. You know, they're babies running from the cradle. And understand how much of your mind has not had the babying that it needs. And as you go through different stages and have to become someone, usually between 9 and 13, that has to be able to be trainable now more quickly, and you'll benefit if you can fit into different things and be at home in strange places, and be at home being told to do things, the sum of whose vision or the origin point of its vision remain completely beyond your reach, like the heaven, the fabled heaven that should ever remain beyond our grasp, as according to Robert Browning. Heaven must, our reach must exceed our grasp, else what's a heaven for? Which is black magic. That's black magic. There's not anything necessarily true, it's just a suggestion. There's no real argument being made there. What? It's very rhetorical. Else, what's a heaven for? Ergo, the definition of heaven is that as something that you can never grasp. A baby reaches out, but it's never there. Nope, never there, never there, never there, never there, never more, never more, never more, never more. And that's communist propaganda. The morbidity of the poetry, the literature, it's all incredibly morbid. You look at most of your entertainment, it's nothing about really ever getting what you want, except in a maybe small fragment of highly plastically altered and surgically altered happiness in every way, all of whose scripts are run by people of a level of verbal intelligence that goes into all of the vast legal and scriptural and scientific orders of the magical kingdom that rules this world. Communist black magic. Keeps you working, keeps you wondering. And again, the best thing I have to go on is my own family, my own experience, my own pain, my own subconscious. The things strain-inducing or strain-induced as they may be, that don't really agree with the way people live and talk and judge. And I spend a lot of time by myself in the woods, smoking marijuana, and doing a kind of job that pays enormous dividends using my voice. Communication, language, it's everything. That's every subject in the world. If you know enough about language, you can know anything you want. You just have to communicate properly. That's all it is. Science is communication. Communication with nature, communication with you, communication of what though? Is communication always good? Is any communication a good communication? What is the best communication? Right? When do you feel most communicative? When you're safe or when you're taken away from your mommy and daddy? If I take you away from your mommy and daddy and I test your communication skills, shove you back, test your communication skills, what do you think? Right? Now we don't have to do that. It's just a really easy thought experiment. Right? Right? I shove a knife in your groin. Right? Now tell me the truth. You know, the movie's like, tell me the truth, Lex Luthor. You know, okay. I took Lois Lane into an underground cave and I raped her repeatedly and I got the video. It's amazing, man. Okay. Well, she's all right. She's recovering. She needed some surgery. There was some vaginal tearing. Sorry, Superman. Right? And yeah, in a sense, under duress, people will communicate very well. You know, if there's somebody wants certain information out of you. Right? But in terms of just, a peaceful person under normal circumstances, right? Stress, like a knife to the groin, isn't really going to make you disposed to your highest levels of communication. You might even confess to things that aren't true. You might say things that you wouldn't normally say. Children catch themselves all the time behaving in ways that, like, oh, where did that come from? You surprise yourself, and they're not necessarily inclined to think it's stress induced, but stress does induce certain things. And when you say people say that young girls normally are meant to have, if you'll forgive the terminology, mine, emotional ejaculations. They can become suddenly quite hostile or emotionally, aroused, hysterical, and it's normal. It's like no, they're even surprising themselves, and it's happening. It's kind of a seizure, an emotional seizure in the mind because um, they're under so much emotional pressure, and so people will see that, they study it, they say it's normal adolescence, and they never look into what's actually happening. They're not listening to the girls. It's like if your little girl is getting violent for some reason, like she's under pressure. If you say something you don't mean to say, maybe you're under pressure. Now, granted, that doesn't mean you won't learn to say everything you need to say, but pressures can be induced that at a point, trying to describe them can seem like you're just making nonsense sounds. You might just start crying. Crying might be the first thing you do to talk about something that's happened to you, and you'll cry, or you'll be angry for years and years and years, and then maybe you'll start talking about it, or even more deeply, you'll have a compulsion. You'll have lapses in your critical thinking. You'll dedicate yourself to addiction related levels of work. In other words, you'll give so much of yourself or too much of yourself to this, that, or the other that you'll become sick or weakened. And you'll leave yourself vulnerable to predatory or mercenary behavior, which is maybe no more than the weakness, the sickness, or the pressure of other people with their own problems with divided loyalties. And how is anyone ever going to make sense of that? And you're not supposed to. It's a human chaos. It's amazing that we fucking live as ordered as we do. E pluribus unum. People quite often can be said or heard to say, doing anything they can to keep themselves together, to keep themselves afloat, right? Right? They need that marijuana or they need that drink to get them through the day. Right? It doesn't mean drinking is bad. It doesn't mean marijuana is bad, but it's like, what do you rely on? And if your life's unsteady enough, no amount of marijuana, no amount of this or that is going to help. And you're like, oh, fuck marijuana or fuck drinking. It just fucks me up because there's not enough stability to maintain the medicine at the dosage that you're using. You have to adjust your life first. and then see if you can also add the medicine. Right? Things can be so bad, in other words, that no amount of drinking is going to help. In fact, it's just going to make it worse. Marijuana is a little safer because it doesn't change the way your brain works in a way that basically retards you. Right? It stops your ability to really, for cognition. So, um, again, to a point, I'm sure it's very good for you and gets the lips moving, gets the heart moving, and you don't have to be super intellectual to say what you need to say sometimes. In fact, someone like me, I really admire people who can just shoot from the hip, and say, and basically what you're talking about is people fuck you and you want to fuck them back. I get it. And it's like, yeah, okay, pretty much. A little bit of an oversimplification, but I think you get the general spirit of it all. It's like, I think a lot of people feel that way. They feel like, they shouldn't be angry. In a communist society, you shouldn't complain. You shouldn't, want to get back at people, maybe, or you shouldn't just understand critical disequilibriums around you, and that you're not a neutral party in it all. Right? You're part of a system of response that's not just made of one person, it's made of hundreds of thousands of people. But you may be the one that matters today. And everything you can complain about, 100 other thousand people can complain about. A person whose behavior may seem just comical and potentially dangerous or tragic every day because of personality disorders or lapses in their judgment in this profession or in this place of living or whatever. But just think about what they could do to not just you, but any number of other people. What are they capable of allowing to happen just because you get an insight into immaturities in their mind from childhood, understand naturally begotten in a way, but they're so full of certain kinds of energy, certain kinds of uh, tendencies to come to judge situations a certain way, quite poorly and insufficiently to be able to account for any changes that need to be made, if even just in someone's attitude towards something. And as often because, as soon as they started to do that, it would almost defeat the whole purpose of their lives. The fundamental order of which is based on 90% of the emotional content of pain never being discussed at the level of verbal communication. Do you understand? That's a really big imperative in a communist global world full of black magicians. 90% of communication is, of especially emotional nature and of pain-related nature, is not to be verbalized. Right? I almost feel like I shouldn't say that out loud. It's just like a lot of people have to be psychopathic, right? Because you're just around people who can't emotionally communicate 90% at any given time of what might be the most important thing for people to really talk about. It's like being in a catastrophe and nobody's talking about it. So the catastrophe just continues. But if we all started talking about it, like we would start to see mitigation, an abatement, if you will, in the general tension, that the angst, basically, as the Germans put it, that human beings are living under, this the silent misery of it all. Quiet desperation. Maybe that's not true. Maybe I'm just making a suggestion. Maybe I'm suggesting it to myself and not to you. But I think I see things as like a part of life. It doesn't have to be the whole part of life, but looking at the subconscious, it's helpful, again, like it's helpful to say, do you dislike me? Is that why you did what you did? We could say, do humans behave as though this is true? And is it helpful for us to think about that? Right? It doesn't have to be everything. Right? But it doesn't have to be nothing either. Right? These are big decisions. Decisions, decisions, decisions. Oh, look at that. We got some sun. Getting so privacy. It's good. I'm so glad nobody comes in here. No one comes in here except me. I had a pretty good masturbation in here yesterday. I sat on that log over there, took down my pants, and it was just a beautiful, sensual feeling after the rain. And it was like, that's all the sex I ever want. It's not the best. I don't pretend to say that it's. Some people would say that's not even sex. It's fine. It's the use of the sexual energy. No, it's not sex with a woman, and maybe technically it's not sex at all. As much as sex with a woman is pretty much as though sex compared to no sex when you compare it to no woman. But nonetheless, um, it was about as satisfying a time as I could hope to expect. And it's just beautiful to ejaculate. You know, like you need to use your sex energy. Right? I don't mean to get more detailed than that. It's just I think it's important, you know, for the sake of science that people know. Like yesterday, for instance, I said I think I need, you know, to generate some erotic energy. I feel like I have to basically make myself horny because it's just time. It's time for me to up my energy. So I had to make up some jokes and stuff like that to get my energy peaked a little bit, and then I was leaving, and I thought, oh, okay, what the fuck? Because you know, you got to use that energy. So I always hope nobody sees me. Of course, it's like it's the last thing you want. It's like, oh. I don't think it's illegal to masturbate in the woods. I mean, it's not like you're not making an effort to avoid human contact, and it's not like people don't need to be able to use their sexual energy, you know, on federal land, not on your private property, but it's like everything out here is sex. The birds are having sex. Why can't I have sex? You know, everything's having sex. The world's having sex. Everyone's having sex but me. But yes, I do try to be unseen. I don't like to do it basically unless I know nobody can see me because I wouldn't be nice for anybody. But wow, direct sunlight. What do you know? Cold, cold day, but wow, I've never seen the sun there before. The sun basically comes around here, around here, around here, so it follows this arc right over me until about 3 o'clock when I usually leave. It's so interesting to look at the role of the sun across the sky. I don't really have the firmest grasp of my sense of actually the path of the sun, uh, especially since like when I'm here compared to when I go home and I see where the sun is setting. It's like my house is over. House is here, down this highway. Yeah, yeah. So it's actually coming down quite directly down this way. So this must be west. This must be east. So I'm actually sitting on an east-west meridian, um, which would make that south, and behind me north. Actually, that doesn't make sense. Okay. So I think it's. I think the sun is probably setting higher than true west. So I think it's actually more east-west is like this, or even like this. I think actually no, east-west is more like this. Yeah, I'm totally off. Yeah, it's like this. It's actually through this way. It's east and west.
maybe through this. West is kind of that tree. Is west of me, right here. Something like that. I don't know. I have to keep thinking about it. That might make this part of the pentagram east-west. Oh, hi. Couple birds. Hello. Hi. So, talking about the world in this way, that I call communist, and black magic in this way, that I think people are forced to resort to, as their loyalties are forced to be divided at a young age. And largely due to the divided loyalties of their caregivers, and then the moral and even sexual incoherence by effect or by impression of, of those types of conditions. And then, that would be something that maybe could be changed over time, maybe just in my own mind or my judgment of human beings. Like maybe I'm just seeing one profile, one cross section of human psychological development, and that, basically, it would be easy to see certain aspects of human psychology in more disturbing ways than you need to until you put it into proportion. So, just like there are things about the human body that are unsightly, there are things about human beings in society that are unsightly. And we might have to acknowledge that there's just unsightly things about human psychological development in what I call a communist society, which I would define as communist in the way that I talk about that development being um, something that can be described that is not necessarily as pleasant, however deeply penetrated it is into what people assume, however arbitrary it may noticeably be, should be their children should be subjected to it, and people should be subjected to it. So they should live within that vision all of their lives. To me, anything like that, nationalistic, democratic, religious, is basically communist. Like human beings should not live in the same world, essentially. Everyone is a world unto themselves. And yet you can still have boundaries. That is not anarchy. That when children are allowed to live in their own world, which is basically the biggest fear I think parents have of letting their children live in their own world. Letting them build a teepee and a little fire and paint their face every day and be in their world, um, that they become actually a more moral person. The danger is not that they will not be moral. The danger is that they will be. That's the danger, because they won't fit in with the rest of society. You would have to acquaint them with other people so they would get street smarts about how unfortunately and unpredictably deceptive or of poor character human beings could be. Their friends, the people at school, adults, policemen, doctors, like you basically couldn't trust any of them because none of them are moral people. They're all communists. They basically just do what they're told all of their life. They think what they're told to think all of their lives. And that to them is the moral. Their morals are based on what everybody does. Their morals are not based on being able to live the way you want to live in your own world. Because your voice and your mind is a world unto itself. That's what you are. You are world unto yourself. Right? And this world is a world unto you in a way that it is never going to be like unto anyone else. And that is not insignificant. It's not to be taken for granted, as it is by a communist society, by all of its philosophies and all of its literature and all of its music.
They should have more modesty. Do they even know who they're singing to when they sing to you? I think they're singing to something far less than what you are. I think they're making movies for someone far less and more intelligent than you think you are. The world is talking to a native genius with barely concealed contempt. That's what the communist world is doing in everything. It doesn't want you, for some reason, to have your own language and think your own thoughts and live in a world unto yourself, because that's how you meet the world. That's how you grow in your mother's belly, by being a world unto yourself and being surrounded by a world unto itself, and that world being unto you in a way that it is completely unto you and you to that world. Your relationship with the entire world and your relationship to your mother, many of whom aren't really that psychologically connected to their body or even their children, but can convince themselves that they are. Because when you live a certain way, you're guaranteed not to be connected to your children, but you're guaranteed to improve in your ability to convince yourself that you are. And to get even a sense of happiness and pride at your capacity to do that, which includes your capacity to overspeak and rule over, and use, though lovingly, an advantage psychologically and physically over your children, and give them to be kidnapped by other people who will very nicely and pleasantly do the same thing, so that if your children don't like it, it's their fault. That's communism. That's black magic. So I think I've made myself pretty clear at this point. Yeah. Because at 46, I don't have to be your child. Right? I'm not somebody's child anymore. Right? I'm not a stupid little child you can just teach anything to. Right? I was born with this intelligence. Right? Now I'm unwieldy. Now you can't just shove me in a box. Now you can't shut me up. Now I know that the way you live changes the way you think and makes decisions for you. The way you live, basically, is the brain of your brain. And it's either going to respect your brain or it's going to cannibalize it and eat it alive. And you're going to go, hey, this is wonderful. I feel so much better since this world and the way I live cannibalized my brain. Why don't you do it too? And just look at the things people never think about. They just want to get enough money to survive. But by going on welfare, I limited, vastly limited, how much I would have to worry about money for my entire life. I've basically never had to worry about it, and I've never had to work. I smoke an ounce of weed every month, and I'm never out of money. Because I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm filling up the space of opportunity that creative intelligence has bequeathed to me by birth. I don't have to work. I don't have to. I've been very patient. I've been very nice and compassionate throughout my life, right? I've allowed people to take things from me and rob my time and corral me into their stupid belief systems. Because that's what they needed me to do. It's not necessarily what I needed to do. Right? And now I'm healthier than that. I've learned. But I was healthy, and I was taking my time to learn about how people behaved. When they had my trust, respect, and they had some of my heart, and my time, and my body, and my trust, which are all pretty important, very valuable to have my trust. My trust costs $100 million, but I'll give it to you for free if you can prove to me you're not a communist black magician. You can get $100 million trust from me, right? Now, if that takes work, you're not my kind of person. if you don't feel the same way about me, that I should earn your $100 million trust, you're not the person I thought you were. You're not the person to whom I'm directing this video. Your trust is worth a lot, isn't it? And it's not like all your trust is wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying nothing is so bad that your trust doesn't make it better, because your trust is worth so much. It's worth a lot to the world. Now, that's a good thing in some ways. Maybe it's a little bit tarnished in others, but that's fine. The whole world's a fucking communist world. I mean, I think forgiveness should be the rule of the day. I mean, it's all pretty overwhelming. I mean, they get us when we're babies. You know what I mean? Is anyone really that bad a person? It's just they take you when you're a baby and they can do whatever they want with you. That's all. It's amazing that you've made it as far as you have. And you're going to be okay. But we're going to all be better the more we can talk about that 90% of pain that nobody talks about. There's nothing I can talk about that's so bad that any part of society needs to change. It's just to crank down the angst. Like, okay, it looks this bad. It looks that bad. It looks like we don't really love children at all. It looks like we're all pedophiles. Okay, let's be honest. Let's take some worldly criticism for our part in this fucking thing called civilization. Let's just be fucking sober adults for 3 fucking seconds and say, hey, we'll take our share of shame. It really is a bit of a monkey fucking a football. You know? Can we just all be fucking honest about that? A lot of people are hurt. If you're doing well, great. A lot of people, it's a fucked up, pretty fucked up thing, day in and day out of their entire fucking lives. And I'm talking people on the street. I'm talking people in penthouses in Manhattan. I'm talking children growing up in rich families. I'm talking people living within 100 feet of your fucking house, for whom life is not a heavenly fucking boat. And the cup of plenty does not runneth over for them. Not anymore. Not since they were hit, beaten. Not since just slowly over time they've lost something like their childhood sense of dignity and safety, and have become compulsive and neurotic. Just eager to please, getting the attention of whomever. Looking to capture prizes that bear no resemblance to the prize which you first saw sparkling in your eyes at the age of 3 under the stars for the first time. The prize of your own mind growing like the greatest forests of the world in safety and honor and respect. Mm-hmm. And come hell what may, you would bring glory to your kingdom. You would walk about and roam what you thought to know or own about the substance and meaning of human existence. And you would know this most of all, that you had a voice in the matter. And you would walk around and tell people, this is what I think because I have a voice in the matter. You have a voice in the mother. You have a voice in the matter. Now, I've been smoking weed for, I don't know, a couple hours or whatever. And I think I just need to walk around at this point. I need to roam. Need to do a roam the perimeter here for a bit. Let's go roam around. I'm always sitting here all day and it's like, fuck, there's got to be something else to do. Get off my ass. Let's go in here for a second. There was I forgot to say, I met slugs. I met a snail on the way here. It was really nice. I don't think he's here anymore. Yeah, slugs and snails. Yeah, they were making having a great journey. I don't know where. Yeah, it was really neat. I didn't see snails for years, and now I get to see them from time to time. They're really beautiful. Oh, this is an easy day, really. I've gotten most of my vim and vigor out of me. Oh, 2 hours and 47 minutes, okay. Oh, yeah, I mean, it's like, what do you do about it all, right? I mean, I just want to be happy and have some peace on earth, and you know, I can't coo on people who are dangerously immature and the like sometimes, and I just and there's nothing they can do about it. Just preserving the safety of my home, and it's neat to see people like you see them in one instance, when you take the measure of their mind, and it's like, and then you see them in another instance where even more violence is happening, and you say, oh yeah, that's the kind of mind they have. And there are people that are, whenever there's violence, like in many respects, there are always people around who seem excessively permissive of certain kinds of human behavior. They just don't get that certain kinds of behavior is wrong, and not because of some like moral biblical sense. It's like it leads to bad things to good people. And they just never seem to connect the dots. Like, this is just not a good idea. It's disrespectful. It's placing everyone involved in unnecessary danger, basically. That's the most wrong. And there's lots of, as much as there, if you like your safety and you like your home and you like feeling good and you like your family being well, it shouldn't be hard to imagine many things that place people in danger, and not even things that people think are, imminently dangerous, but are, in fact, if you think about it a little bit, quite dangerous indeed. So, it can be simple things like someone leaving blood on a door handle, right? You don't want that. Right? You can get diseases that last your entire life from contaminated blood. So, human beings know not to leave bodily fluids laying around, right? Your bodily fluids might be fine, but we don't know that. After I got raped, I always got full blood tests up to a year later. Like, I just asked the doctor to check for everything. And I never told them I was raped by women. I just made sure my blood was good, always hoping I'd meet some nice woman. I'd be able to say, hey, well, I'm clean. I make sure I'm clean. I'm not going to give you any unwanted things. And, but I never met her, so. It's a nice pentagram. I like walking around. It's peaceful. Let's sing a peaceful song. Like a gospel or something. Oh, amazing grace. No, is that it? I don't want to sing that song. It's quite pathetic, really. Sad, right? They're all so morbid. Ugh. I saw the cock and the cock saw. I saw the cock and the cock won. I stroked my daddy's. Well, wait a second. Where's this going? Let's go this way. There's never anybody around. That's the crazy part. If I saw someone, I'd just be like, oh, hey, man, just walking in the woods. I don't come here every day. I don't live here. In a strange way, I guess I do. I don't sleep here. I don't bed here, but I spend a lot of time deadheading. Oh, deadheading. What is that? Oh, that's when you work for the airline, but you actually just ride along for free. Deadheading. I'd like to deadhead.